Alright, I started this video in my car and my phone overheated and I didn't know, so I was speaking to myself for quite some time for no reason. So I'm in the office now. The topic is something that I'm asked about a lot, and I get surprised reactions a lot too. So I thought I'd just shed a little bit of light, a little bit of insight into it. I planned a series of videos. I wrote that down here, but I don't remember planning a series of videos. But there should be like a series that insights into the veterinary world, or behind the scenes with PMV, how it runs, how it doesn't run, just for educational purposes, interest sake. But this is not, if you know me, this is not my sort of thing. So another motivation for this video is SEO related, for Google, so that my business can hopefully grow and become sustainable. But I can kill two birds with one stone, can't I? I don't condone killing birds. It's just a saying. Just relax. The topic is, it's often people's favorite topic, and they talk about it and they think about it all the time, or it's like someone's least favorite topic and they hate it and they never want to think about it, but it's a necessary evil, and I'm in the latter group. And the topic is money, particularly the cost of owning a pet. And I'm not gonna lie, I have some figures written down here that you'll see me glance down at, because I don't remember exactly the figures, and I didn't really prepare or study for this. Really going for the sort of real, authentic PMV vibe. Off the top of my head, sort of spur of the moment sort of thing. So yeah. And also, I just wanted to mention that I don't have any intention to sway you in any way or convince you of anything or justify or excuse or, make up excuses. It's just to, and I'll try and stay factual, it's just to inform. I used to let comments about the cost of vets and things really get to me personally, because you'll understand a little bit later. You'll have to watch to find out. It used to really get me down, and it really used to just make me feel like absolute shit. But as you get older, you get a mixture of less fucks to give and thicker skin, I guess. And now it doesn't bother me all that much. So yeah, just to inform, insight, educate, for you to better understand, and it pretty much, and Google, to have online content for Google. So there was a survey from the Animal Medicines Australia, that I'm going to pull some data from, and just on the cost of ownership, and why we have pets and things. And they showed that 68.7%, so almost 7 out of 10 households have pets. 47.8% of dogs, and 33% of cats. That's probably a realistic split, I reckon. And we spend a lot of money on them. So the number one cost of pet ownership is actually food. Vet care, I think, is like number 3 or number 4 down the list, but it's it can be significant. It's very variable. It can be quite minimal, but it can be particularly significant depending on what sort of breed you get and what sort of conditions your pet acquires, and what preventative measures you have in that, and potluck. So why do we spend so much money on our pets? What do we get in return? Because we're humans, we don't think anything's for free. We want return on our investment. And 85% of pet owners, I'll just say us, report that our pets have a positive impact on our lives. So I guess that kind of suggests that they're kind of worth it. And 52% of us got our pet in the first place for companionship. 23% specifically got a pet for mental health support. Now, it doesn't specify whether that's dogs or cats. I feel the people who obtained a cat for mental health support probably were a little bit misinformed when they made the decision, but I hope it all turned out well for them. But you can't go wrong with a dog, really, for mental health support. And they do really play a big part in our lives, particularly like historically. There's been a huge shift in how integrated they are in our lives. They've gone from an ornament in the yard, it's an exaggeration, I know, to like a member of the family that you take to Bunnings, and to Sunday brunch, a dog, and sometimes cats. They've come a long way, and I'm not complaining. I think they deserve the world, but I am biased. But the return on investment for some people is huge. They help people through tough times in their lives, losses. They can fill voids, companionship, someone to talk to. But there are some numbers that support the integration into our lives. I really hope you can't hear the garbage truck, otherwise I have to record this again. I don't want to have to do that. It takes a lot of energy. But yeah, so proof that they're highly integrated into our lives. 50% of us admit to talking to our pets as if they understand. And you know what, they probably do more than the average person, really. I mean, they get so much information from our body language and demeanor and a vibe than some people do from the words that we tell them. So I think I'd much rather talk to a dog than a person. But anyway, 43% of us let them sleep in the same bed as us. I'm guilty of that. I think it's, there's a difference between a little clean dog and a big hairy Labrador sleeping in your bed, but won't discriminate for the sake of this video. 31% of us admit to giving their pets gifts on special occasions, so birthdays, Easter, Christmas, etc. I'm not guilty of that, but I don't even give people gifts for those things. And 27% of us admit to leaving the heating or cooling on at home when we go out for their pets. And this is a new thing for me, but I'm guilty recently of doing that because it's too hot. Tell me I would have done that 5-10 years ago, and I would say absolutely not. But not now. So if they're so amazing, why don't we all have pets? Well, I think this is not factual. This is not from the survey, but there are two types of people in this world: animal people and non-animal people. And non-animal people just don't get animals. You know what I'm talking about. Like, they don't see what normal animal people see. They don't get it, so they don't have the drive to have a pet. But the survey says that 30% of, or 27% of non-pet owners say that the ongoing cost involved in pet ownership is prohibitory. So money plays a pretty big part of it. So moving on to more sort of, I guess, my sort of area that I should know more about than just generalizations, is the cost of vet care, and it's expensive. It's expensive even when you do your own vet work. You can't avoid the cost of parasite prevention or hospital treatment or IV fluids. You can't avoid those things. You can't avoid the cost of food, which is the number one expense in pet ownership. You can't avoid the cost of the jumpers in wintertime, of a variety of different colors and different styles. Some with hoodies, some without hoodies. Some with a stegosaurus spine on them. Some that look like a T-Rex. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't avoid that cost. But yeah, there's the cost of those things, and this is more opinion as well. This has turned out to be far more opinion based than factual than I'd planned. But the term like medical or health or veterinary has, I think, a similar effect on the cost of things, just like the term wedding does. Like, say, there's a thermometer. So let's say it's $50. But you turn that into a veterinary thermometer or a medical thermometer or a pediatric thermometer or any other fancy word that just means something simple, but it's medical. It's suddenly $200 for that thermometer. I don't have any proof for that. That's anecdotal, and I don't encourage opinions and decisions made on anecdotal evidence. But I couldn't help it. We should be making decisions on facts that can be proven, evidence-based decisions. So I'm really sorry. That was my plan, but it's turned out to be opinionated. But I'm upfront about it. So, but yeah, the other thing, so medical costs are huge. In a clinic setting, they have, and they're expected to be a one-stop shop, so they've got to be a GP clinic. They've got to be an imaging
Jenny
suite,
Eels sent a long notification.
and they've got to be a surgical theatre. They've got to be. A lot of them have grooming facilities as well. So, talking about like equipment costs, the biggest ones would be the imaging equipment, like the X-ray machine and the ultrasound. Those machines can cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then there's the upkeep of them as well. And they're even more than that in the human sector, and even in the veterinary sector. A lot of clinics, I should say, make use of second-hand equipment from human hospitals to try and reduce that cost and make it a bit more sustainable. But even then, it's still a huge cost, and so that needs to be paid off, and that can only be paid off by using those machines. So when you go in for an X-ray, what you're often paying for is everything from the reception area and air conditioning and maintenance of that area to the front desk staff, their wage and the computers they're working on and the internet service they're using and the phone service they're using, etc. Then to the nurse's wage, who may do an admission consult and assess your pet and take care of your pet, and the hospitalization and bedding where your pet's going to stay until it's ready for imaging, the vet assessment for pre-anesthetic or pre-sedation health check, maybe even a blood screen. The blood machines, they're expensive and temperamental and require fixing all the time. And then you're paying for a veterinarian and a support staff, a nurse or a technician, possibly 2 or 3 of them, to handle your pet, position them correctly, and take an X-ray. And that X-ray fee needs to cover all of that, and then the aftercare as well to support your animal through recovery from sedation, clean up after its mess, take it for a walk, give it something to eat and drink, pamper it, spend time with it. The difference that spending time with a pet in hospital makes to their perceived, this is opinion, perceived well-being and stress levels, I think is huge. And if I did a study on it, I'm very confident that I could produce hard evidence to support that hypothesis. But anyway, so there's a lot that goes in to doing that X-ray, but on the piece of paper and the bill at the end of the day, you think, God, $800 like for a picture, like seriously, come on. I had to get my arm X-rayed last week and it was free. It wasn't free. The taxpayer, including me, paid for that X-ray, and I can assure you it was done on a far more expensive X-ray machine in a far more expensive building. But yeah, we don't see that. That kind of leads us to another reason why veterinary care seems, it doesn't seem, it is expensive, but it seems extraordinarily expensive compared to our own healthcare in Australia, at least, is there's no Medicare. So Medicare is there and it's fantastic and it's brilliant and we all have access to it if we're a citizen. And we all pay for it if we pay tax. But the government doesn't deem it worthy to produce the same system to look after your pet's health. Maybe someday they will, with all the acknowledgement of the positivity they bring to our lives and health benefits. I know there are reports out there about, your pet is worth this X amount of dollars in mental health care or whatever. But they don't recognize that right now. So you've got to pay for it privately. You've got to pay for everybody's wage, and you've got to pay for the equipment, and you've got to pay for all the consumables, and you're just going to pay. That's it. And I think it's easier to, I guess, talk about the costs involved when veterinarians as a whole are not hugely remunerated. I would have some guilt. I would have some guilt in talking about the cost of veterinary care if we were all really rich. And I'd be like, yeah, we make lots of money, it costs a lot, so us about it. But we don't. And that leads me into the next point way too soon, much sooner than I'd planned. But here's, just to give you an idea, not to, again, remember at the start, not to complain or justify or whinge. I'm beyond that now, it's years ago. But to give you an idea of what we're paid, I wish we were paid what people think we're paid. I still don't understand how. Well, they see the bills and then that's how they assume. But do they see any other evidence, like us driving Mercedes and BMWs and living in mansions? Well, I don't know too many vets that do. But just as a comparison, to give you an idea of wage, I'm just a little bit nervous about sharing this because a lot of people find it really personal. I don't, but a lot of people do, and so I'm worried about offending people. But just to give you an example, so I left clinical work in a clinic, in a building, for a whole multitude of reasons. There's 101 reasons, but one of them was that I wasn't satisfied financially, and I'm going to tell you what salary I maxed out on. It was about 2018, so it was a few years ago, and I know the cost of living has gone up a lot since then, but I know wages have increased since then too, maybe not to the same extent. And I don't have any current data today about today's salaries. But as a veterinary director of a clinic, I was earning $75,000 per annum as a salary. Just let that sink in a little bit. So I do have facts for this now, actually. In 2018, in May to be exact, the average Australian full-time salary per year was 88,000 and something. So it was below average, and I know average can be skewed by the few incredibly high earners. So the median was a little bit less, only a few thousand less according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So, to be the head vet of a clinic with that responsibility, as you can imagine, on a salary less than average, less than the average Australian, was, I guess it was disheartening, and it was devaluing, with the expectations. And this kind of ties into why I said earlier that it used to really get me. It used to really really shove a knife in when people would accuse me of charging them too much, being greedy, in it just for the money, because it's the complete opposite. You couldn't be further from the truth. If I was in it for the money, then from the get-go, I mean, if you can get into vet school, you can get into dentistry or medicine or any human field, and earn a lot more. So to cope with that, I guess I've learned that to not have money as a driver, I guess, and that's really worked with that. So you can claim and accuse all you like now, and I won't cry, but back then you could have made me cry. But yeah, but that's just the way it is, and I'm not complaining, but I did complain back then. So yeah, and wages are huge, like one of the biggest costs of any businesses, really, like, including vet clinics. So paying the vets and staff is a big cost, but relative to other professions or industries, I think it's fairly small. And the support staff, nurses, vet technicians, and receptionists and things are on even less. And in hindsight, on my clinic work, the nurses really, like, they're the backbone of the clinics. They're the doers. They get shit done. So yeah, they're highly undervalued. I hope has this turned into a whinge, that I explicitly said that I wasn't going to whinge. But just talking about vet care, I just wanted to give an insight into behind the scenes on the cost. And it's only going to increase. It's continually increasing. Every time I do a order through the wholesaler of drugs and consumables and things, the prices have increased between orders. And I order every couple of weeks, and it costs more than it did last time. It's incremental, and when you're talking about wholesale prices and things, you're talking $1 here, $1 there, but it's on the rise. It's not going down, and so naturally, the way the business works, the cost of those things needs to be passed on to the business's clients or consumers or patrons or customers. And it's just the way it's got to work. From a mobile point of view, the business model is a bit different. So there's trade-offs. I don't carry an X-ray or an ultrasound or a surgical suite, so I don't have those huge overheads, and I don't have staff yet. Although I absolutely need somebody to answer the phone. Some of you have learnt that the hard way. But everything's done in a much slower way. So with a clinic, we can. What's happened here? Is it still recording? I can't use technology. My computer just went to screensaver. That means I've gone too long. Yeah, in clinic, you've got lots of staff there to pay for and things, but you've got the facilities and your patients come to you, so you can minimize downtime between patients and see more patients per unit of time. In a mobile setup, you're restricted by travel time between patients. You can optimize that by planning your route and attending certain areas on certain days, etc., to minimize travel time and the cost of travel costs. But at the end of the day, you'll never be able to see the number of patients that a clinic can in the day. And so naturally the cost per patient, I guess, is higher. So what am my consult's 158? What's a clinic these days? Looking around as, anywhere from $90 to $120 or so. So it's less. And the pros and cons and the differences are a whole nother topic that I will try and bite my tongue and not get into right now. So my setup has I guess fewer overheads but fewer avenues of revenue, I guess. But I'm not complaining. I absolutely love what I'm doing right now and how I'm doing it. So I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I totally didn't read any other notes that I had planned. I just went off topic, and I think I had a little bit of a whinge, and I'm sorry about that. Oh yeah, I did want to mention too, just about like the bills and bill shock and estimate shocks as well. Particularly in clinic, I don't do too much of it now these days, but in a clinic, if you've got a sick pet and you want to do a workup or a surgery or whatnot, and you price up an estimate, it was really hard to give clients that estimate a lot of the time, because personally I wouldn't be able to cover that cost for my own pet, and yet I had to confidently tell these people that you need to pay this much money to fix your pet. That was really, really hard. And I guess the point of saying that is, I guess, just know that when you hit with a big estimate like that, like, it's not like the vet is cold and has no idea what it feels like to be hit with an estimate like that, because they do. And particularly if it's a surprise and you haven't budgeted for surprises, that's a whole nother topic as well. But yeah, that took a lot of getting used to, and it probably came across as being not confident in delivering that estimate because I wouldn't be able to pay it myself, and then that could, I guess, probably be portrayed as guilt in that it doesn't really need to be that much, but it does. Sorry. But yeah, I guess I don't have trouble as much with that these days either. thick skin and whatnot. It's just the way it is. For those of you that know me, you already know that there's a discount on every one of your invoices. I don't want to show my accountant my books because it's not a good business setup, because I already make it as affordable as I possibly can, probably too much at my own expense, but it's hard not to. But yeah, there's just a little insight into behind the scenes of vet's view, of vet's opinion. Hopefully without too much whinging and complaining. These figures are all in Australia, by the way. I know if this is going, yeah, it'll go on YouTube. I know there are people in like Germany and the US and things that have watched the videos. You know, I'm talking about the entire audience of like 4 people, and not even my mum, and but some are overseas, and so these figures that I've quoted are Australian, obviously. All right, I'm going to sign out and stop babbling. I have a habit. That's why I don't have time limits on my consults, because of babbling. No, it's mostly for anxious pets, but it also accounts for babbling. Righto. If there are points that I think are important that I missed, I might add a part 2. But also, if you've watched this long, or just listened this long to my babbling, it's like 36 minutes already. Kudos to you, and what's wrong with you? Go pat your dog. If you have any questions, ask, and I will answer them. I'm pretty brutally honest and open, so ask away. And thank you to the optimistic 3 viewers of this video. And I know that's not enough for Google to see, but you know, it's a start. We'll get there. Cheers.